Good day and welcome to Rocket with Chief. My name's Daniel Robus. I'm your host. And in these conversations to take you places, we go to interesting ones. And today we're going to dive into an area of architecture, innovation, and a whole digital transformation journey. I think you're going to enjoy Peter Robb. Peter, being a media innovator, technologist, and digital architect, the geek in a hoodie with a seat at the boardroom table is how his website talks around him. Peter, thank you for giving us some time. I absolutely love peterrobb.com. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, Daniel. How are you?
I'm super good. Peter, first off, let me start with, you've got a web page that is working for you. Why did you start on that? Why have you put your reputation in one area?
Yeah, I think it goes probably about 2 to 3 years back. I think, Daniel, what I'm trying to do is reinvigorate what an enterprise architect is and the value that that role plays in an organization, because historically, I guess it's always been about this long engineering cycle of here are all the problems, but we don't necessarily have the solutions. So I'm really trying to bring a little bit of geekiness back into the boardroom so that you don't lose that, let's say, a little bit of play in you, that you're still a technologist at heart. Yes, you've learned a couple of additional skills around strategy, business acumen, all of those good things. But at the end of the day, our core nature is to be involved in technology. And I think these days, with the digital transformations underway, you can't lose that skill.
Yeah.
With all due respect, CAs have traditionally ruled the roost when it came to the executive environments and in charge of business areas that are adopting digital. I think really the new CEO has to be an EA in a sense, which is somebody who understands the business and technology on all fronts. So this was kind of just to really say, look, EAs need to restructure what they learn. EAs need to add new value in this digital transformation world. And that's kind of where I was at, is like, look, here's a new breed, let's change, let's see where it leads to.
Wow, I really enjoyed. There were mic drop moments there. The new CEO must have an element of EA, is how I interpret it. What is a chief group enterprise architect to you? What does that mean?
A number of people ask me, and I try to avoid the title, because it is a bit of a confusing one. But at the end of the day, in my role, what I'm responsible for is to map the business strategy and objectives, step by group, to how we address it with digital innovation. That is ultimately, I guess, in a nutshell, what my role is. Whilst that's happening, and we're talking a lot about the future world and the new things that we need to adapt our business to accommodate on the digital front, is also to clean up what we no longer use. So, there's a bit of a dance or a bit of a couple of steps to this dance, which is that whenever you're introducing new, naturally that would be removing old. And that's a lot of where the business acumen comes into play, and that a business will want new features, new functionality at points in time. But in order to get there, it's not something you switch on tomorrow. It's a progressive roadmap that needs to be built out. And that's really where myself and my team come in, is at the strategic level to address all of those objectives. We come in at the detailed design level to make sure that all of our implementers are doing the right things at the right time and implementing according to the specs we set out. And then lastly is the cleanup, is with all of the tech that everybody loves to buy and, new toys, just install them and get them up and running, is to make sure that there's a level of governance around it, that it's all for the larger picture, which is 2 to 3 to 5 years that we're looking at this and making sure we plot our thoughts correctly.
So a good enterprise architect has to both understand the technology at where it's going, but also the implications on the business if we change something. So if you said, let's evaluate. So we've got two systems. What happens when I pull this one out? can the business continue? How far off, if you had to rate us on a 1 to 10 from an architectural skill, are we off being that model at the moment?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because, you know, the new digital age has just fundamentally changed things, and you know, it's such a discussion that has so many different directions to go. A practical example, though, is how the corporates have structured themselves over the last 20 years versus how new startups have this nimbleness in which they can enter market and very quickly start stealing subscribers, stealing customers. It's because they don't have the weight of 20 years of legacy systems that have been built up. So all of the corporates are going through a major challenge at the moment of how to restack their technology environment. Is it cloud? Is it not? Is it something that is in our world, IPTV, or is it linear? You know, these are things that have just introduced themselves as decisions that need to be taken in a lockstep way, specifically in corporate because of the legacy. So the challenge is, how do you get rid of all of this legacy in a way that you don't lose all of the investments you've made over the last 15 to 20 years, and, you know, to use an industry term, sweating your assets, versus getting immediately onto a cloud type of environment where you pay per use, and then start addressing those digital needs of our customers. Now,
I just want to interrupt you. I just want to interrupt you there. Peter, you don't believe, I'm hoping you don't, that
that's ominous,
that this 20-year legacy is all bad. I mean, if something is nimble and starts up on Wednesday and is trading by Friday, the holes that you could have are massive. So where's the balance between sensible business foundational elements which cater for transactions and agility, but take into account security and longevity and scalability, versus this nimble, let's get it up, roll it out in 3 days and start? Where's the balance, and where do architects play a role there?
Yeah, I think that balance word is exactly where the architects fit in, is those individuals to make sure that in the world of customers, where customers are consuming your services, how do we make sure they're secure? How do we ensure we're properly compliant? How do you ensure that the technology fits correctly to give you the right sort of performance that the customers desire? Like in an e-commerce site, as example, you want payments to be secure. That's where the architecture sort of fraternity come in, to make sure you've got that level of well-architected solutions that meet everybody's requirements, not just our business, but also the end customer. Since most things these days are about the end customer journeys and experiences. But that's where the architects come in. They are that, let's say, that team that designs the requirements with all stakeholders taken into account in the most secure, most well-defined technology solution that you can come up with. That's our role. It's a lot. We're certainly not the type of individuals that are looked at with fondness in the organization much, since we always have to have a level of governance to how quickly things need to get released into market. But that's part of what we take on board, which is to say that you have these trade-offs of making decisions. You can get it into market within a month. However, that's going to cost you X. Okay. Or we have a roadmap by which we could introduce it in 3 months, and you'll have all of the security and everything you need with a successful go-to-market. So those are the sorts of discussions we get involved with, which are generally quite heated with our business counterparts.
So how, I asked you just to rate where we are from solution architects. I'm going to put it a different way. What's a commonly held belief about solution or system architects that you passionately disagree with? Yeah.
It's two, really. One which I'm really passionate about is that architects are solution finders. we obviously, part of our role is to look for problems and see what the issues are and what the challenges are before we address it with a solution. There's this perception that architects generally just go and document information and are people who always find the wrong in what currently exists instead of finding what the right outcome could be. So I think that's one thing that absolutely quite passionate about, that we are not. We are not just documenters, we're engineers by trade. So documenting in architecture models is part of what we do as our practice in order to make sense of the world.
Is it an art or a science, Peter?
It's a bit of both. I think the art comes into the solution. Like I have a lot of these digital options available to me. Which one do I use to make the experience the most proactive and the most positive for our customer? The science comes in, okay, how do we detail that out in a specification for a developer to go and build once we've come up with that? Yeah.
Your current gig is quite a big one. You've got a great brand behind you. If you had 10 times the budget you have now, what would you spend it on?
Sure. No, that's an interesting one. Actually a good question, because most of the stuff is, relatively costed well these days. Well, the 10 million I would use 10 million extra.
Or 10 times the budget. That's what I said. You just supersized your multi-choice budget. Where would you go? What would you spend it on from an architectural perspective that would make a difference?
Yeah. I think for me, I would probably start, because we're going in the direction of a platform business, I would absolutely start looking at how I could reinforce that platform business with the additional budget. So that would mean onboarding partners that support our lifestyle and content-based strategy. I would also then make sure that bringing on board the right talent. I think talent is everything these days. You see how the different countries are putting massive incentives in place for technical resources. It really, I'm talking about the Netherlands, I'm talking about the US, specifically and Australia, is because of the talent that we need to retain in order to be progressive.
We're being pillaged at the moment, huh? Sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's quite sad in a sense. Well, I can tell you that Netherlands has a South African community much larger than the UK now.
Wow. Yeah.
No,
it's
but I think those are two areas I'd absolutely focus on.
So that retention of talent, but you mentioned something which is the platform business. Is that where the war's being fought now between fintech, between content providers such as yourself, between the telco players? Everyone wants a platform. What's your take on building platforms?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think platform business is still relatively fresh in the South African market. So many people call it a platform business, but it's something that's emerging a little bit for us. I think a lot of the industry, specifically telco, banking, media, and health and life insurance, are starting to try and make a move towards the quadruple play, which really comes about from how do you make your customer or subscriber more sticky to your environment and the services that you offer. So each has got their, I guess, major core business that they bring to the table. Like with my current employer is content. However, what a telco brings to the table is data, and cheap data in order to provide streaming services and data services. Like with the bank, it sort of cuts that last mile down for payments and financials such as wallets in order to transact. So each brings their own to the table. Everybody's trying to own their customer as almost a lifestyle partner. If you look at a platform business at its core, it is an e-commerce environment, a marketplace of sorts, for anything that you as a customer would want, so that you don't have to go anywhere else. And that's kind of the business platform we're trying to bring through our different service offerings now, which I think have been really good in take up. So I guess you've got to ask yourself the question, what is the easiest on-ramp for you as a customer where you have all the choice you want, and we feel that's on the TV and any kind of channel that you spend time entertaining yourself.
Sure, that's an interesting one. There is a war going on for the customer's attention, isn't there? From an application services perspective, in your mind, what's something everybody in our industry, and I'm talking service providers such as yourself, such as other people, should stop or start doing?
On the application services side, I think trying to interpret what our customers actually want and taking action from them. So by that,
so we should start spending more time listening to customers.
Absolutely. Sure. Absolutely. And a lot of that comes through in the data that come from customer interactions. I think we've spent a lot of time through our SUMI application and bots trying to understand what it is across the customer's complete life cycle, not just calling into our call center, but from the day that you join to the content you watch, to the different calls that you log with our call centers, where you're either happy or not happy with the services you're receiving. We're trying to make sure that we capture that lineage of interaction for us to make better decisions on your behalf, because it was actually quite interesting. I was reading an article yesterday about the dilemma of there's so much choice that as a customer, you almost need organizations to help you make decisions. Otherwise, you become irrelevant because just too much information. It's the same if you think about going onto Netflix. Netflix is actually really dropping off the radar in favor of TikTok at the moment because there's just too much choice. I need to watch something, but you know, the advantage they had years ago where their platform was quite slick and you could find things that appeal to you more. Now, people are looking for a much shorter time frame in which to find content, which is TikTok. It provides you the streaming as you're busy browsing through the different apps and interest groups.
So human behavior is being changed and affected by all of these choices, and our time for attention is even cut down from where we could go and get multitudes of movies or programs now to 3-minute bites, 30-second bites. Got to say the 30-second flipping irritates me. Moving on from that, where do you self-educate? You've got multiple gigs. Are you podcast, book? Are you sites? Where would you recommend for someone who wants to follow in Peter Robb's footsteps as an enterprise architect? How do you stay ahead of the game?
Yeah, I think Daniel, just one thing that I've prided myself in trying to achieve is a good rounded professional knowledge base.
Okay.
So for me, I came from a tech background. I was a developer by trade.
Okay.
And in order to become a fully rounded architect, I believe you need to have good financial acumen. Okay. You need to understand the needs of your stakeholders and the business strategies that you're actually trying to ultimately, at the end of the day, put IT in place to address. And you need to understand the market within which you play to make the right technical decisions. Okay. So I think for me, it's about getting a fully rounded business and IT set of skills, and then spending quite a bit of time, I guess, as you would expect, and sometimes it is the case with developers and techies and the geeks, is that we have a challenge to communicate in simple terms what it is we recommend. And I spent quite a lot of time going through Toastmasters and different presentation skills.
Wow.
Fortunately, through some of my employers over time, to hone that skill. Ultimately, if you can't communicate what it is at a business level, wow, you're trying to achieve through your technology design, unfortunately, you're not going to be listened to. The business needs to understand what you recommend. Otherwise, they'll simply do what they would like to. without understanding the consequences.
Yes.
So I think that
yes.
is a fundamental skill that's required
Sure.
for anybody that would like to be a rounded architect.
That is gold. Can I sum that up in what I've heard from you? Is you to be a good architect making a difference, or a good technical person, you need to understand where the business is. You need to understand the market that you're playing in, and then you have to be able to tell stories around it so that people can listen. Really, that's interesting. So it's a bit of a shoe-in question then. What's one tool you always carry in your toolbox, no matter what project you're working on?
The tool I carry in my toolbox. It's quite a funny one, I guess. Excel.
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 Eh? Gee whiz, Excel. So the numbers talk to you.
Yeah.
The numbers make sense. We've got to understand the numbers. Daniel, did you hear that? Yes, I heard that. Understand the numbers. Okay. If you don't have an understanding of if we're making money or losing money, you're not going to have relevance. Eh? Oh, that's awesome. What do you wish younger Peter understood about your current role?
I think what I would have wanted to understand about my role as it is now is just how connected all businesses were. It's something that I had to learn as I sort of progressed through the ranks. In that we're in a market, it's a macro environment. It then obviously leads itself into a micro environment in your industry, but it's an end-to-end ecosystem of customers. And that, I think, for me was the biggest learning, is to move away from tech is a decision to business and ultimately customer. If you don't understand what the customer wants, whatever technology you throw at it, it's not going to make a difference.
Okay.
What I also had learned over time is technologists have a very specific way in which they like to do things. And it's probably just because, I guess, I'm not a spring chicken. I'm 42 now. It's very much an old school way of thinking, in that we'd like to land a solution and people will come. Not the way it works anymore. People will come to the solution that best defines them and that promotes the interactions they want with the business. So I think those are things I wish I'd gotten onto earlier, but I think it's improvement.
Yeah, there's wisdom there. There's wisdom there. I laugh at people who say, no, we're not in sales. If you can't sell something, you ain't going to make money off it. You've got to be able to sell these things. What's your
everybody has to be a salesman.
Exactly. What's your concern for your next board meeting? What's keeping you awake at night?
I think for my next board meeting is the changing market needs of media and broadcast.
Okay.
I think these are things where our customers are reinventing themselves all the time, is keeping up with those changes in behavior. I think it's a real thing, and it's not just limited to media and broadcast. It's limited, well, I guess it doesn't even have boundaries anymore. It really is about who is our customer, because the interests change across different channels all the time. And I'm not talking just TV channels, but digital channels. So cell phones, TVs, any kind of flatbed. How do you define what you do with the new customer in the 21st century? And I think that is a continuous thing that we keep analyzing and reinventing ourselves to address. But it's changing so much quicker now. So you really have to be on top of your go-to-market, your product, your solutions, in order to continue to remain relevant. And I think that's really things that keep me up, certainly at night, is what is the customer going to want next? And to try and address that proactively is really where I'd like to be, and where we're consistently as architects working at Multipost to make sure we have answers for our board that ask for those questions.
And when it comes to that, what is the unique difference that Peter brings to the discussion? What makes you different from a developer or a business person?
Yeah, I think, and it's maybe something that I've certainly changed in my approach over time is not to be dictatorial in what could be done, but to rather provide the best options available with the potential outcomes. And I think that's really important, is considering all the facts, all of the analysis, all of the market info and intel, in order to provide and table the best options for your executives and your major stakeholders. It's
Awesome.
about giving that really well-founded research so that the best decision can be made. That's,
awesome.
I think, really where I fit in, and what I pride myself on is giving those best decisions for the right roadmap and outcomes to be plotted by my leaders.
Awesome. So, Peter, when you're considering an enterprise change, what are the 5 top tips for avoiding trouble in a project that you would suggest to someone?
Yep, 5 only. Okay.
Carry on. Top 5. We can go to 20. I don't mind. But what are the 5 things to look out for?
I think first things first, the change has to be business driven. If it's not business driven, you are going to run into issues of technology not matching what business requirements have not been unpacked with. The business has to want the change and then to back it. If you're not getting airtime with the right business team, unfortunately, you're going to fail. It will just become another project or program that ran its course and disappeared. One recent, I think, bit of advice that I can really see would have helped on some of the transformations we were busy with is an extremely strong PMO or BTO, however you structure yourself. But without the right, strong mix of people in those execution and delivery roles, unfortunately, again, the business will and your sponsors will not necessarily stay the course, because there's always something more important to do that's more immediate. If you're going to plot the transformation journey, it has to be medium to long term, and you have to stick to the plans that you develop. If not, it will eventually just turn into a swamp of what is BAU and different transformation initiatives.
Okay. That's 3. That's 3. Oh, this is brilliant. 4, picking your partner.
Yeah. Okay. Picking your partner is so important. So it's like anything. It's like picking your wife or picking your 2RC. Probably the most important decision you'll make. You have to have a culture that fits both of you, and you have to have a partner that you can trust. As soon as you lose trust in your partner, unfortunately, that's when things come up for it. So picking that partner or implementer that you're going to focus so heavily on is critical.
Okay. So don't get caught up by the rands and cents. Look at the long term and the value behind it.
Absolutely. Okay. And in that, your partner should also see the long term value and bring that to the table. Awesome. I think that some of the best collaborative environments I've been in is where there's a mutual respect and a mutual interest to bring proactive information, guidance into the setup.
Awesome. Awesome. And then last one?
Last one, I would say technology decisions.
Okay.
They have to, again, be taken into account on what the business needs, and what architecture generally are responsible for is unpacking those requirements into the capabilities required in different technology stacks, and then make an objective decision around technology. What I've seen over the past is people have become almost affiliated to certain brands, or are too scared to move away from a technology stack that's embedded heavily in environment.
Sure.
You have to become objective.
Sure.
Unless you're objective, you tied into another long-term relationship that may not be the best for you. And that's where our difficult conversations in architecture come about, is what is the best thing, not what is the thing to necessarily do for the immediate minute. We look at the long term and make the best of it.
So point solution or suite solution, where are you?
Yeah, I guess that's the tricky one, right? So horses for courses. Each one will have its own positive or negative. What we do as an architecture practice, we table what we call architecture principles, and these will be the guiding decision-making stances for you as an organization or as a technology provider. So a simple one would be cloud first. It doesn't mean cloud only, but it means your first assess. We always, with new technology or new business requirements, would prefer to go to the cloud, but you will get instances where you need to be on-prem. And that's how we guide the decision-making, to start off with a cloud first principle approach. But again, horses for courses, when we did our analysis, we have to factor in technical impact assessments, decommissioning, commercials, who the providers are with the skill sets in country to do these things. So it's a fully rounded decision-making process, not just about tech or just about money.
Brilliant. Peter, that's fantastic. I've got two more questions for you, and then I'm going to let you go back into your day. The first one is, great. If you were sitting next to a leading expert in your field, who would it be and what would you ask them?
A leading expert in my field, I think, somebody particularly that I feel has a nicely rounded view of the technology world as well as business is my boss. To be quite honest, I think you need to work for people that you feel you can learn from.
Okay.
So for me, it's usually more of an interview the other way around. I'm interviewing my potential employer instead of the employer potentially looking at me for a role. But that's just me. However, awesome. I think you have to work with somebody you can learn from. Awesome. And that's certainly the way that I sort of look up to my current boss. He definitely provides, yes, visibility into that side and my own makeup. And yeah, I think good debate.
Brilliant.
That's somebody I look up to, yeah.
And are you allowed to tell us your boss's name, or is that a state secret?
No, I think Bradley Elliott.
Okay.
He's the group CIO for MultiPro, and this isn't to get a bonus. I'm just putting that out there, right?
Well, if you get a bonus, you got to share it on the podcast. Come on, man. My last question for you, Peter. If you were conducting an interview like this with an EA of yourself, what other question would you have liked to have heard more of?
I think one question that still don't necessarily have the answers for, that you have to approach others, get the input around industry change, is how are you reinventing your corporate? Because I think that in there lies so many changes. I don't think people fully appreciate the complexity of changing your technology in time with business scale. It really is a bit of a dance. And I think one question I would want to delve into more is exactly how others are starting to change their business and at what speed. Because I think that cadence for me is really important. You're only as fast as your weakest link. That usually tends to be your
oldest integration. Or your oldest, yeah.
And to try and test the tools and the patterns others are looking at first in that journey, I think is really interesting to see how the different markets address it differently.
Awesome. Peter, where do people get hold of you? At peterrobb.com, can they reach out to you? Is LinkedIn the best place to find you?
Absolutely, peterrobb.com. There's a contact list. Anybody can fill out there to get hold of me. I love collaborating and working with others from different industries. I think only together can we actually really build our skill set. The other being LinkedIn. Thanks,
Peter, from my side, I'd like to thank you just for this very interesting discussion. I've got 2 pages of notes. I love speaking to people who are passionate about enterprise architecture. So from me at Rocket, I just want to say thank you. Fly the flag. Keep the architects rocking.